Hello, everybody. It's been a while since I have uh, streamed anything because there's just so much to talk about, and I'm overwhelmed. I really didn't honestly. I didn't expect this to go on for this long. Before we get to the substance of what we're going to talk about today, let me just say that you're going to hear chanting happening in the background because I live in Calcutta at the moment, and it's a festival season, and so there's chanting all over the city. You also may hear what you may think is a motorcycle, but it's actually my dog snoring. He can start at any moment. So those are the housekeeping things. Now to the substance. Merrick Garland's Deliberation. This is known and scripted alpha, beta, gammas, and we're going to talk about why it is now we're walking on the 10th month of past January 6, 2021, and we still haven't heard anything from the Department of Justice about uh, about investigating, indicting, and prosecuting Donald Trump and his close circle near people who orchestrated the seditious conspiracy and then were incited the insurrection, where hundreds of police officers were injured. Um, Ashley Babbitt was misled to her death, and Officer Sicknick and several other officers died as a consequence of that day. Now, the Republican Party has, for the last 10 months, consistently obstructed getting to know what the truth is. While the Department of Justice has very diligently, uh, and FBI have very diligently investigated and prosecuted the cases. If you aren't watching, if you aren't following, and it's simply because you don't know where to go, you should check out Scott McFarlane News on Twitter. And you can follow him. You can follow several other reporters on Twitter and perhaps on other platforms as well. And I'm telling you this because it's incredibly important now that every American wake up and try to understand what's happening and why it's taking so long. Some people will come out and sensationalize it by saying that, oh, the Department of Justice isn't doing anything. Uh, that's not true. It's not true. It's going incredibly slowly, so much so that I have perhaps said uh, disparaging things about the Department of Justice and Merrick Garland in my tweets. Uh, so it's not going like we want, like in a Hollywood movie, but it's going like it needs to go. We have this is an unprecedented situation, and never in the history of the United States, and I would venture to say in the Western world, has or the world has there ever been a prosecution of this many people at this much of a scale, and all of it's connected to one event. When you look at it, when our children will look at it from 50 years from now, they're going to ask us, how could you not see that this was a conspiracy? How did this not? I mean, even for people sitting in the middle of it, you know how you don't feel the storm when you're in the eye of the storm? But you sure as hell know that you're in the middle of a storm because there are walls of clouds swirling on either sides of you. Just climb up a tree if you're in a village somewhere, or go up to the roof of your house or the attic and look out. If you're ever in the eye of a storm, of a hurricane, or of a cyclone or typhoon, or one of those horrible things that we have started to witness more and more of because of the climate crisis, but that's a different topic. We're not going to dive into that. Now, why is Merrick Garland taking so long? Well, first of all, because every single case has to be investigated. Due process of law is incredibly important, not just for the vindication or the incarceration, conviction of a suspect or a defendant in a criminal case, but it is also important to be able to, for the state to be able to make a case that is so sound, so strong, that it weathers the muster of both the fact finder, which is the trial court, and also the appellate court, and then ultimately the Supreme Court, or the highest court of the jurisdiction, in this case, that would be the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, mind you, Merrick Garland was the chief judge of the circuit for the District of Columbia. I haven't brushed up on the circuits in over a decade, so he was the chief judge of that circuit, and he understands what the standard of review is when an appeal comes to him. That he's going to be asked, say for example, he builds a case, and it gets to trial court. The jury of a federal district court finds Donald Trump guilty of seditious conspiracy. This is a hypothetical. And then it gets to appeal. So there are many standards of review in which the appellate court can look at the case that's being presented to them at appeal. And they range from just looking at whether the law was properly applied, or if the judge's discretion was improperly applied, to the standard where they can look at it from the very beginning. They aren't a fact finder, but they can look at it from the very beginning, in the sense that how the case developed. And the higher you go up the appellate court chain, so if you go to the Supreme Court, they generally take that standard of review, which is called de novo, which means you look at it anew. You look at the case as if it were presented to you. Now, it's likely that Donald Trump in this case would go up to the appellate court. It would probably be the appellate court of District of Columbia, unless they somehow, move it to Florida because he's a resident there. I don't know how that works at the moment, or that'll work. So he takes it up to appeal to the appellate court, and he just says, no, it's not. You look at it, you just look at it de novo. You have to look at it anew, and maybe the court will agree, maybe the court won't. And if the court does agree, then they'll look at it anew, and they'll have to. So at that point, Merrick Garland's case has to pass muster all over again, because if it doesn't pass muster, and if the appellate court agrees that it's going to be looking at it completely anew, and then refuses and says that no, this wasn't decided right, it's going to remand it back down to the district court to fix the areas that the appellate court thinks was not done properly. Now, if the circuit court says, no, we're going to apply abuse of discretion, see if the lower court judge abused their discretion in applying the sentencing or whatever. In that case, we're not going to talk about that, because that ends there, and whatever their judgment is, whether the lower court was right or wrong, it ends there. And then whoever lost in that case has the right to appeal to the Supreme Court of the United States. So now let's say the appellate court, I'm gonna go with like, just one scenario. So what you're gonna get to understand once it gets to the Supreme Court, whoever whoever the petitioner is, they're gonna say, Your Honors, we want you to review this case de novo. So Merrick Garland's case, which was built for the trial court, now has to pass muster for the third time in front of a bench of 6 ultra conservatives, and Breyer, Kagan, and Sotomayor. So Merrick Garland has to build a case that is so ironclad that Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Justice Gorsuch, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and Chief Justice Roberts are convinced. So let's say we put Justice Roberts with the liberal minority. So that's still 5-4. So Merrick Garland has to build a case that will convince one of those 5 conservative justices. I suspect it would be Gorsuch. And I would suspect that he'd want both, more than one. So I'd say he'd want to go with Gorsuch and probably Amy Coney Barrett. That's hard to tell. But the baseline is he has to get at least one of those conservative, 5 ultra conservative judges. So he has to, it's easy for people like me who aren't sitting at the chair, or it's easy for people who are even as respected by communities as, Barbara McQuaid and I think I'm getting her name, and Glenn Kirshner, who I look up to, and he's just amazing at getting to all of the points right as you get to it. I don't know how he does it. So it's easy to theoretically sit here and say, oh, this is the crime, and it is. I still today stand and believe that it is seditious conspiracy. That is the principal charge. And that if justice is such a thing in the United States of America, that Donald Trump will be indicted for seditious conspiracy along with incitement of insurrection. And now, by telling Bannon to not go and to the January 6th committee, the select committee, congressional select committee, and by Bannon agreeing, Donald Trump has also committed obstruction of justice, obstruction of Congress. So, I suppose in a very pessimistic universe, or maybe in a very surface universe, it may look like Merrick Garland just took he's just not doing his job. But I just want to remind people that the previous acting AG, who then left, made one press conference for which Glenn Kirshner admonished him about seditious conspiracy being investigated. Now, Mr. Kirshner's criticism was valid, that you shouldn't be commenting on an open investigation. But on the flip side of it, for lay people like me, that is also was kind of an indication that something is happening. And we needed that, because otherwise, at least someone like me who's been watching this like a hawk needed that. And And then there was that Reuters article about the FBI saying that there's no coordination. And it was a really poorly written article because somewhere in the middle of that article, they said that at this point, and maybe that was the whole point of the article, is to hide that fact, and for various reasons that I won't go into at the moment. So those two messages played a part in keeping us apprised that there was something happening, and then there was the so that's with Mr. Garland. That's with Attorney General Garland. Now we have Congress. The hypocrisy of the GOP is astounding, because what they do is they say, we want to know how Ashley Babbitt was killed like that. We want to We want to find out. We don't think there's a need for all this. They are contrarians in everything. Because Mitch McConnell has made the pledge of blocking everything from the Democratic Party. It's a carte blanche. And you can't have a carte blanche. It's absolutism. That's absolutism. That's authoritarianism. Not being able to look at it in the myriad shades that life is, and looking at it just black and white. That's what authoritarianism looks like. And if you want contemporary reference, just go to Star Wars. It's the idea. I said Star Wars and lost my train of thought. Anyway, so they stopped the independent commission. They filibustered that. Filibuster, you got to check out my filibuster episode. It needs to go. It's unconstitutional. And so then Nancy Pelosi, who is amazing, never forget that she impeached the orange turtlet twice, and he deserved it. He deserved to be convicted, mind you. And he had the threshold not been 60, he would have been, or 65, whatever. I don't know anything. Yeah. So, yeah, because no one in script doesn't want you to believe in what I have to say. I want you to think about it. That's the whole point of it, right? I want you to. You'll see that I leave all the comments, good or bad, because I want that dialogue to happen. And there are many people who, comment in my favor, and I really thank them for that. But you also have to understand that unless they're being harmful or just spreading propaganda, all of which I monitor, I let them stay, because there's such a thing as the freedom of speech, which I think I believe in, and I think that applies to somebody who doesn't agree with me. But it doesn't apply to somebody who wants to harm me or harm others. There are limits. And so now Nancy Pelosi, in her wisdom, started the Congressional Select Committee, the House Select Committee, on January 6th, and refused to have Jim Jordan and somebody else. I don't know his name. It's not worth remembering. Jim Jordan I remember because he's just terrible. And, you remember good people and you remember terrible people. You don't remember most of the people in the middle. That's just how life is. So now the Select Committee has subpoenaed, and Select Committee's investigation is unfolding, and the standard of review is whatever the Select Committee makes it. Mind you, this is not a court of law, but Congress has an inherent power to demand answers for the American people. And when you're under oath in front of Congress, lying under oath to Congress is a crime under federal law. It's very difficult to understand because our government is so separate but equal, and so not separate. My God, so sorry. Not separate. Separation of powers. That's what happens when you go unscripted for 20 minutes. The separation of powers and checks and balances, it's at every level. And it's part of it is the due process of law for both the state and the person. It's the individual's right to be free and the state's interest to keep peace and tranquility and preserve and work towards the general welfare and safety of the people. And weighing those interests is what the courts do. But Congress makes the laws. That the courts then interpret. So Congress has the right to know what's going on, to be able to make the laws so it preserves the peace and tranquility and ensures general welfare and safety of the people. So Congress's subpoenas, if ignored by Donald Trump and his co-conspirators and abettors, then Congress has an inherent power to arrest them and compel them to come to Congress to testify under oath. They can plead the fifth. And you can watch those Glenn Kirshner videos if you want to learn more about the process of every nitty-gritty thing that's happening. You can follow Scott McFarland's Twitter feed for daily updates on what's happening with the court system and see how the Department of Justice is pursuing each of the cases. I have been every single day. You know, I'm a writer, I'm a painter. Those are the things that I do. And since December of 2019, I have dedicated most of my time to thinking about what I want to discuss next on No One Unscripted, because I felt the need. And I'll tell you this, I really didn't think that this project will go on for this long. Because if you notice that there are many playlists, and that's because, I thought this would all happen in 26 episodes, and the election would happen, and obviously no. I believe this is the 60th live stream that I'm doing. Before that, I recorded and uploaded. So I suppose this is the marathon, and we're just gonna have to just keep going. But it's very easy to lose faith in a justice system that, as Merrick Garland is handling every single case that's happening, all the way from reproductive rights to the insurrection to the underlying seditious conspiracy. I believe that hope may seem to be fleeting, and you may not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I see it. Yeah, it's far, far away, but until we continue to have faith, until we wake up and learn about the body politic, until we understand how our system works, until we expose the people who are doing this by funding the dark money and the seditionists and the people who were bused to Washington, D.C. on January 6th, we got to do that, because there are limits to what our justice system can do. And the limits are, they're not stretched by any means at this point, but they are the highest level that they've ever been. So we need to help the FBI. We need to remain patient. And I want y'all to remind me to be patient if I'm not patient. So with that, let's just say goodbye for now. I'm gonna try to see if I can do one more in a little bit. I hope this thing is recording because I don't think I can do this all over again. It has the green light on. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Love you. Bye.